Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Project Stargate Friends Research. I'm your host, Mark Brenner,
And I'm co-host Greg Ship.
and we're so glad to be back today. Unfortunately, Jake wasn't able to be with us. He's got a lot going on at his job, and he texted me earlier and said that regrettably he's not able to be with us, but he'll be back next week when we put out another episode next week. But anyway, we're going to miss him today, and I just hope he's doing well. I know he's been pretty overwhelmed, Greg, at his job. He's a hard-working son of a gun, that's for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what you been up to, man?
Well, I've just been trying to enjoy the summer. Unfortunately, it's been an overcast, rainy day, but on that, it's not as hot out. I've just been taking care of business around the place and playing some video games.
Wow. I've been playing too. I've been playing Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, and I don't know if you've played any of the Ninja Gaiden series. I've been playing the series since I was actually a kid. Since 1987, I've been playing Ninja Gaiden. Since the first four that came out were in the arcade, and then there's the trilogy on Nintendo, and it was just an awesome series. And in my humble opinion, I think it's the first real Souls-like genre game. I know that might be controversial because they didn't make it, but Team Ninja knows how to make awesome games that are punishing.
Yeah, I've heard that's very unforgiving.
What have you been playing?
Well, I kind of got more into Warhammer now, and I started playing. What was it? Space Hulk Deathwing. I'm waiting for their new game to come out soon. It was Dark Tide. It's kind of like Left 4 Dead, but instead you're playing Imperial Guardsmen instead of Space Marines, which I thought is going to be very interesting. I can't wait for that to come out.
That is going to be cool. I don't know. I recently, when I was sick, when I was out, I had so much time. When I wasn't in the hospital, I kind of picked up my gaming mouse and keyboard and Xbox controller and started getting back into a little bit of gaming. And Ninja Gaiden Master Collection and Halo Infinite has pretty much been ruling my graphics card lately.
Nice.
Yeah. I'll tell you what else is very interesting is our guest tonight. Tonight on Project Stargate Friends Research, we have Shi the Medium. And for the first time ever, we're having an actual medium on our show. Mediumship is something I find very interesting, but I have a feeling there's more to this story than her simply being a medium. I think she's had other types of experiences as well. We're going to get to the bottom of who she is and what she's all about and what all she's had to experience over the years. I'm super excited about getting to talk to her this evening.
Same.
Yeah, definitely. But anyways, without further ado, I say we bring on our guest. I think I'm ready to bring her on. You ready to bring her on?
Absolutely.
All right, let's bring her on right this second. Here we go. All right.
Hello.
Hi, Shi. Thank you. Welcome to Project Stargate Friends Research, and thank you so much for being with us. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm fine. How are you guys?
I'm doing great.
Great.
Greg, they let him out, so he's doing good.
Good.
As well as they used to be. Yeah.
Greg and I go way back, man. But Shi, you have paranormal experiences and that's gone way back. Why don't you tell us and our listeners about how you got in, a little bit about your background and what you do, and how you got into this bizarre world of parapsychology and UFOs and stuff.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. So it all started when I was younger. I've always had supernatural experiences. Every house that I lived in had energy in it, or there were presences in the house. I used to be able to see into other dimensions and see people in those dimensions, and didn't know that, other people weren't seeing what I was seeing. And this was like first nature. I used to be able to wind whisper. And what that is, on a day or an evening when it's not windy, I seem to be able to have a go-between or a back and forth with the wind consciously, like intellectual, meaning I would blow out and the wind would blow back in. And again, this wouldn't be on days that were where, it would be windy. So things like that, being able to read people, and not really knowing that I was doing it, not really knowing what being an empath was, or reading people psychically until I was much older and I was able to understand that. So I've always had a history of this type of phenomena. I'm also from the Hudson Valley area, the mid-Hudson Valley area of upstate New York. And I've seen UFOs. I've been to Brewster. I've seen UFOs at dusk, and it's almost like I would see this phenomena when it wasn't entirely like dark out. So it's like there are things that are going on in a certain area of the Mid-Hudson Valley area, that aren't exactly hidden. It's like, which is interesting because you would think that there would be, when these cloaked activities would be going on, you think it would be happening at night. But no, you see things all times of the day in this area. So I've seen UFOs in the area, and just experienced a variety of phenomena. And so what I do today is, I've also had abduction experiences, and I detail that in my videos on YouTube. And so currently, I do offer mediumship services, but I'm more interested in helping those who need to close cold cases or who need to locate, loved ones. And I like to find those cases that aren't highly publicized. So it's more like a charity. If I can work with someone who, their case isn't well known, I'm happy to do that, as long as, I am picking up information and there's a connection there. So that's what I'm doing currently with my ability. And yeah.
So among other things, you're also a clairvoyant, apparently.
Oh yeah.
That's something that I definitely want to get into, as well as the Hudson River Valley area. I definitely want to get into those things for sure. But you tell me, what does it mean to be a medium, and what different types of mediumship are there? I know that they're not all quite the same, but that there's there's trans mediums, there's this type of medium, that type of medium. What type of medium do you consider yourself to be? And what's the difference between all of them as well?
So I'm aware that there may be some interpretations of different types of mediumship, but I just feel that mediumship is basically just being able to commune, being either a voice for someone who's not in this dimension, or so channeling, or just being able to interact with them and receiving information on behalf of someone else. So that's pretty much what I do. And I didn't know my whole youth that I was a medium. That kind of came to me in the early 2000s, or that's how I interpreted it. So I would just consider myself as a go-between between someone who's in another dimension, who's exited this reality, who's trying to make contact with someone who is still in this reality.
Now,
and,
with your occupation, which I would imagine that this would also this would impact that in a way. Are you at liberty to talk about that?
My occupation in healthcare? No. Well, okay. So yeah, because there are times when I know when people are going to transition, but I don't share that. unless somebody wants to know. But and then at the same time, no one knows. I don't tell people that I'm a medium at work. And but there are things that, you know, you get information that you may not want to know. You know what I mean? And that's the hardest part of being sensitive and a receptive, is that you know, working in my line of work, you know, there's all kinds of information that's coming to you, and if you're not used to it, it can take you out. You know, it could put you out for a little bit until you learn how to handle it. But that's essentially what I experienced. I just receive information constantly, and there was a time when I didn't realize that the information was somebody else's. I thought it was mine before I knew and understood. I thought that my feelings were my feelings, but they weren't. I was picking up involuntarily the emotions and feelings of others, and that was very confusing. So so that's basically how it relates to what I do as far as work.
Okay.
Is that what you meant? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, because I would think that you working in a healthcare environment, that it would be like a fairly often thing for you to have these intense personal experiences. That's what I was thinking.
Absolutely. No, you're right. I mean, you get information, but you know, you have to be very careful with what you're sharing. There's a great responsibility in the information, because some people aren't ready for it. And if they don't ask for it, then, you know, I'm not so sure it's the best idea to tell them. It could worsen their condition with worry and stress and fear, you know.
Absolutely.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Let's go. I want to, if you don't mind, can we start with the Hudson Valley UFO stuff? I've heard some ufologists. I've heard ufologists entertain the idea that it's one of the most active UFO hotspots in the world. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree. From the Catskills to Brewster to Cold Spring, to my city, where I had an active, like, interdimensional experience. And not only that, but I was astral traveling through a gate that was in the city underneath a bridge, a famous bridge. There's two bridges in my city. And when I was older, was able to, when I was older, when I was older and able to understand what was happening, it was mind blowing that this, yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in the Mid-Hudson Valley area, from, you know, gates and other dimensional portways to there's military bases hidden in plain sight, you know, all throughout the area. The Catskills is a hot spot. We know that from Whitley Strieber's book. Yeah, so there's a lot going on there.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of your abduction scenarios, and missing times that you've had missing time, or and other paranormal experiences related to that?
Absolutely. So when I was about 4 years old, my family took a road trip down to Florida after they were married, and there were some events that occurred on the way there. Like I ended up being thrown into a swimming hole that actually had an alligator in it, and they didn't realize that was the case. So that was an issue.
God.
That was the first time I was almost. This was in Georgia too. Like, so somewhere along the way to Florida, we were headed to Sarasota. So that happened, and then when I got to Florida, I stayed at my aunt's house, and I had an apparition come to me, and I had an outer body experience with that episode. So I was watching myself from the corner of the room have this experience, and I was seeing the back of this apparition, and it was a positive experience. And so there was that, and then I was a part of this group abduction that took place on the back lot of this Air Force base with other children and my brother.
Wow.
And I believe that's, yeah, and and so part of the reason I started my channel is because I would like to locate, other people who may have had similar childhood abduction experiences and that sort of thing. So that's why I started the channel. But this particular experience involved about 4 other children aside from myself that were visible. And we were just on this back lot. I could see that there were weeds around. It was a part of the base that's not being used or that wasn't used. And we were all dressed in black, sitting around on these like crates, waiting for something. We were waiting for something. And in the meanwhile, these beings who were not small grays, but they were anthropomorphite. They would have been like probably what we would call a medium-sized gray, but they had blue skin and they were very friendly and they were trying to entertain us and make us feel comfortable. So they were dancing around. They were trying to get us to stand up and dance with them, and that sort of thing. So here we are just sitting around waiting for something, and there's like 3 of them just kind of like dancing and prancing and trying to get us to engage in some kind of activity to make us feel comfortable. There was a vehicle, a large vehicle. It was too big for me to see all of the dimensions of the vehicle, but the vehicle itself had like a blue hue. It was like a neon blue hue, and that was sitting off to the side. And so from that experience, I also remember when we were taken, they create these artificial realities to make the children comfortable. So I remember being in these spaces that were very pretty, that were very beautiful spaces, and it would just be us kids. And most of the time we were just laying down on the ground, on the grass, and with a decent amount of space apart. And I just remember us just laying there. So I think these spaces were created artificially so that we could be present in these spaces while whatever was happening was happening. So that is connected to the group abduction. And then much later on, I was able to remember, actually a few years ago, I asked to remember more information. And I was allowed to remember that I was actually being taken the whole time. I was what I like to call single digits. And because I remember there would be times where I would hear this hum, like this low grade pulsating hum that was more like hypnotic or soothing, but it was a cyclical low grade hum. And as soon as I heard that hum, I knew it was time to go for another visit. And that's how I registered it. There was no trauma associated, no negativity associated with it. And I remember feeling excited, very excited. I'd be like, oh, it's time to go for another visit. Like, that's how I felt. And when I heard it, I would start to, what I would feel, I'd feel like I would levitate. I would start to levitate or rise to the ceiling. And as I was rising, I would fall asleep. So wow. That was happening the entire time from, I would say, younger than 10 years old. Younger than 10, they had been taking me regularly. And from the response, from my physical response, I knew that this was happening regularly, and I knew whatever was happening was okay. Like I was not suffering. I was not experiencing anything traumatic. And yeah, so I would say that these were benevolent interactions with either my parent race or maybe, it could have been a faction of the government posing as ETs. Whatever it was pleasant. And sometimes there were other children, like these group abductions.
So have you gone under hypnotic regression ever? Have you ever tried to be regressed?
I tried, but I'm blocked. I cannot be regressed. I cannot be regressed. I've tried to do it, but there's a blockage. I don't know if it's because I'm Rh negative, I'm O negative, or whatever the case is, but I'm also an acute telepath, and I'm a dominant telepath. So I'm not able to always receive either. I can project, but I can't always receive. So I'm not able to be placed under hypnosis, and I'm not able to be programmed that well either. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, so you've actually tried a few times to be regressed to get the whole story of what happened. I'm kind of in a similar situation, but in my situation, I just don't know if I want to be regressed. I have yet to decide because of some of the things that are associated with the experiences I had. But at any rate, that sounds fascinating. You're still having these experiences today, or do they stop or slow down, or are you still having them?
So I'm not consciously aware of having them. I don't know if I'm having them. But when I was growing up when I was younger, I didn't know I was having them either. So it could be happening, and I'm just not aware of it. But I doubt it. I don't think that is happening. I think that I'm so hyper conscious to the point that I would know or I would see or experience something. So I don't think it's happening anymore. In the 90s, yeah. So a lot of my physical paranormal experiences was happening in the 80s, and then I did a lot of spontaneous astral traveling in the 90s. I mean going into bases and being off world and a lot of these training facilities that are not here with other children in these bases. So I traveled quite a bit in the 90s. And I don't think that I was even I think the taken, like all of the abduction stuff happened in the 80s. And that's likely where it stopped. Yeah.
Wow. What's it like?
When I started.
What is it like to astral travel? Tell us about that.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry. What is it like to astral travel? Do you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's well, it's always spontaneous, so I don't know that it's going to happen until I've woken up. But it happens most of the time. It's happening during dream time, but it can happen during your conscious. While you're conscious and awake, it can absolutely happen during that time. I think that probably only happened to me once or twice, but most of the time it's happening during dream time. And I never know where I'm going, when I'm going. I've been to the same places multiple times. That's something that is a constant. Is going to places, the same places, into the same dimensions. There's this one place that I go all the time that I enter through my home city in the Hudson Valley, and the street is in front of the bridge that when I was about 10 years old, I saw a group of people under this bridge, like having a party. And these people looked like they were settlers from they reminded me of people from the Oregon Trail, like what they would look like, the dresses and stuff. And they were just partying, and they waved to me. This one woman waved to me. She was not from this time period. And I waved back, and I was fascinated at that time, but that was the first time I was able to look into another dimension, and I recognized that it was that because of the time period. And then why were they all under this bridge that was defunct, just hanging out and having a party? So then when I started astral traveling, I would go into the street that is directly in front of this bridge, which I believe is a portal. So during astral traveling, there was a building that I would enter, and I would go into this different dimension. And the thing about this dimension and these buildings is that the buildings themselves, there's something about the buildings that are like technology that facilitate you entering these different dimensions. Because sometimes these buildings are like cities within themselves. This one particular building I've gone in, and it's so massive, and there's so many compartments and rooms and spaces and types of spaces in this building. You come out the other end of it, and it's a totally different reality. So, you know, and I now know with a lot of the Tartarian research, they talk about these buildings being used as technology to create sound waves and that sort of thing. If you, I don't know if you're familiar with the Tartaria and mud flood research.
Tell us about it real quick.
Yeah, it's basically a recently advanced technological society society that spanned the entire planet, and because there's architectural semblance throughout the plains, like throughout the Americas, South America, Asia, it's all the same architecture, and it's all remnants of this Tartarian empire that is believed to have been reset. Like there was a reset a couple hundred years ago, like fairly recent, like the 1700s or something like that. And their buildings were used as technology, like to create sound waves. They had Wi-Fi, they had all of this advanced technology. This was, you know, so that's pretty much what a lot of that research delves into, basically, and something that they entitle as Antiquitech. So I don't know if this is related. I mean, I don't feel like it's related, but it's similar in the sense that there's something significant about these buildings that I've entered when I've astral traveled, and I've ended up going through them and passing into this other reality, this other dimension. And this is the place that I go to frequently. Last time I was there was probably last fall. I had a dream there where I went there. And when I go there, I'm completely aware of the fact that this is another dimension, and it's very clear, and it's very vivid. It's clearly not a dream because I'm picking up from where I left off, or I'm able to remember where I've left things the last time I was there, or that sort of thing. And it's pretty interesting. So that's the astral traveling. Yeah. But I've been to other places. I've been to worlds where they were just about to experience some sort of major war, or I've gone to places that just experienced a war and there's nobody around. There's absolutely nobody around, and the infrastructure is always intact, but there's never any people. There's never any people, and sometimes there's extreme weather conditions in these places, but I always go with the same group of children.
Wow.
You know, so yeah.
That's fascinating. I want to open this up, if you don't mind. I want to open this up for Greg, so he can do a little bit of Q&A. Greg, I want to hand the floor to you for a little bit.
Okay. Well, you know, I had a question. I know that I've heard that law enforcement often use clairvoyants and mediums and psychics to help them with criminal cases. Did local law enforcement ever ask for your services in helping them solve crimes or any
No,
cases?
no, because I've never advertised myself for that. What I've done recently is I've just come across some cases, like there's YouTubers that cover certain cases, and if I feel something, then I'll dig deeper. I'll look at the city and the names, and I'll try to find the family if I have anything. So what I'm doing is just, it's very low key, and I haven't heard of any place that I've lived in this area. I'm still in upstate New York. I've never heard of any of the police working with psychics here. So I don't even know if they do that. But there's one woman that I helped out, and I saw the news. It was a woman in Los Angeles who was murdered, and her daughters were on the news, and they were saying it was the husband or the boyfriend who had just gotten out of prison. And I'm like, no, it wasn't him. It definitely wasn't him. So I looked her up on Facebook. It took her a while to get back to me. I gave her the information, and she said, oh, well, you know, the police are looking at him. I really think it's him. So I still told her everything that I had. And about 3 weeks later, she gets back to me, and she starts asking me more information about what I had. And come to find out, they ruled out the boyfriend, and they had video footage of the woman that I told her was involved with her mother's death. And then she sourced another psychic that also gave her details about the same woman that was involved. So that's pretty much how I've been working it, because I would just assume that, you know, most of these law enforcement agencies are not going to, they may not even have the resources either, you know, to really follow up on leads. And then I've had people come to me, I've had spirits come to me that will tell me what happened to them and give me a first name, and I'll have the location and everything, and I know what happened to them. But then I don't know, it just really doesn't go anywhere. I can't exactly locate them. I can't exactly locate. When I say locate, I mean I can't exactly find them in the area. Their last name isn't clear. I know where they are, but who do I contact? I can contact the police, but you know, that's probably not going to go well without anything more substantial, you know. And I'm sure a lot of people here, a lot of these different places hear from psychics, and yeah, so it can get weird. So if I have hardcore information, then I really try. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the guy. There was a young Black guy in Illinois. He was a student that was found in the river, and they thought it was a hate crime. And I tried to reach out to tell them, no, it wasn't a hate crime. I knew exactly what happened to him. And I left the information with a private investigator, and he was like, yeah, we've been getting calls from all kinds of psychics. And I was like, well, I just want you to know it wasn't a hate crime. So, but this is what happened, and this is what you need to look for. And so I don't know whatever happened with that, but he himself, when I communed with him, he really didn't want me to publicize it. I was going to do a video talking about the case, and he didn't want me speaking on it because of what was involved in it. He was ashamed. He was the only one out of his family that went to college. He was really, you know, the reputation was so important that he really just said that he didn't want me to do it, and I didn't do it. And I just, you know, so there are those times when they don't want anything said. And there are times when they're begging you to please, you know, do something. This is where I am. This is what happened to me. And I need you to get in touch with somebody. But they don't, sometimes the information is, they don't give me all of the information. I mean, I've had to scour like missing persons lists in the areas that I thought it was. There was a case in Minnesota with a young boy. This took place in the early 80s, and it involved someone who was very famous, who was on Fox regularly in support of President Trump. This person was involved in it. This person was legitimately involved in it before he became what he was. He was a deputy, and he was involved in it and killing this boy, him and another officer. And I scoured all of these missing persons, the dates and all of that. I mean, I spent months trying to get the details, and I just didn't get anywhere. I had the whole story. I know what happened to him. I know where they buried him. I know why they did it. But I couldn't get his last name. I could not get his last name. And that's the most frustrating with some of these spirits. They come to you and they give you everything, but not enough information to validate them so that you can pass information along. So that's the downside of it.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that it's just is it because how they communicate, or is there limitations to it? Why do you think that is? If you had to take an educated guess.
I thought about that a lot, and I don't know. If it's a case that I found on the news and I get information, that's one thing. But when you're dealing with a spirit who comes to you randomly and they impress you with where they are, what happened, you know exactly what happened to them. And I keep telling them, I need the last name. I have to validate that you existed before we can move any further. I get the first name. I don't know why, but it's been like 3 or 4 cases like that. There's another, there was a man, a young boy actually, he was a teenager down in East Texas. His family murdered him because he was, you know, he was special needs. They murdered him and buried him on the property. And every time I see him, like I see him now, I see him at the start of the driveway. He's just standing at the start of the driveway. And I got the city, but I don't have his name. I know what he looks like. I know the dynamics of the family.
Wow,
I know the age of birth he was, but I don't know what his name is in order to validate it. I've tried to look up articles and things like that, but without a name, without an exact location, and then if he wasn't reported missing, then, you know, that's another issue. So I don't forget them. I definitely put them on the back burner, but it's really, really, that's the downside of it, because they're giving you everything except for enough to you have to validate that they existed. Like, you have to prove that, okay, this is the person, so let me go from here. I have all this information. I know where they put him. I know where his body is. I know why and when what time of the day. I see everything. But if I can't validate them, and I don't know why they don't tell me, I don't know why.
This is a really good
spot.
This is a good spot, I think, for us to take a break. But when we come back, I want to finish this conversation about that, and then we'll get into some other stuff you want to talk about. We'll just hand you the floor, and let you talk about whatever's on your heart and mind to talk about.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
All right, you're listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research with Greg Shipp today, my co-host, and our special guest, Shi the Medium, and we will be right back. All right, welcome back to Project Stargate Fringe Research. I'm here with Shi the Medium and my partner, Greg Shipp. Shi, let's continue this conversation. And you were talking about families, contacting families, and other things. So let's roll with that.
Yes, I think it's very important if you're doing voluntary mediumship readings for families that are going through the process of grieving or something like an unexpected death. I think it's very important to be respectful, and if you have information, try to reach out to them if you have a way to, instead of making a reading video, kind of exploiting the views and the attention that it'll get, especially for a high-profile case. So what I try to do is I try to reach out to the family out of respect to give them information, because it's more important that they have crucial information that they may need. It's important that they get that instead of things getting lost in translation, or they don't get the information at all. I tried emailing through a GoFundMe. I tried a contact on Facebook, and I still haven't heard back for a particular case that I got information for about a man that was killed in Pennsylvania recently. So initially I made a video, but then I pulled it really quickly. And then I just said that I have information if anybody knows them. So I think that's really important then, to just jump immediately for a lot of these content creators that are psychics or mediums when they're doing these readings for these high profile cases. And I don't always feel gravitated towards that, because, when you're dealing with commercialized channels, especially on YouTube, that's something that I like to stay away from. I'm really more interested in offering a resolve to families that aren't getting that kind of media coverage. And so I think that's more important to me, is to just offer the information. A lot of things boil down to proof anyway when you're dealing with these cases. But sometimes there could be something, an energy, a spirit could be telling me, hey, there's this and it's here, and this might help. And if I could just get that information to somebody, so that's my way of helping. And
wow.
Just kind of paying it forward.
Wow, that's fascinating. Do you, now, as far as you have this YouTube channel, can you tell us tell us a little bit more about that? How do if any of our listeners wanted to check out your stuff, how do they find you on YouTube?
Yeah, so I'm Rooted Elemental on YouTube, and it's spelled lowercase ROOT''D. and then elemental is all caps. It's E-L-M as in Mary, N as in Nancy, T as in Tom, L. So that'll be rooted elemental. And the channel's focus was really, I started telling my stories and my experiences to connect with others, but mainly to find possibly any other children that may have had, or any other people who as children in the 80s may have had group abduction scenarios that they may have experienced. And of course others, you know, maybe someone listening to my, I think it's like 3 videos ago I posted my contact experience, maybe, you know, if they experienced blue skin graves that were like dancing around and trying to, and friendly and that sort of thing, I would just love, you know, to connect. And so for more information, maybe there's something I'm not recalling, so that they may be recalling. So the idea was to just put myself out there and my experiences, and also encourage other people to not be afraid, no matter how taboo it seems, you know, like, because with my ethnic group, you know, I'm a Black American, and Black Americans, they claim that they don't get abducted by aliens, which is complete nonsense. And a lot of the supernatural stuff is still very taboo, which is also stupid to me. So I think that it's okay to be who you are and experience what you experience, and to actually talk about it. And so because I don't subscribe to any of those taboo norms or cultural norms, I had to put myself out there to, you know, inspire other people, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you are. Talk about it if you want to, if you feel like, you know, someone can benefit from it. So that's the that was the purpose of creating the channel, sharing experiences, connecting, and also I'd like to help people tell their stories as well. I love interviewing as well. I love that very much. So the platform is there for that as well. And
tell us about one of your favorite interviews. What's one of the best interviews you ever did thus far?
Well, I've only done one for this channel, and that's the last video that was posted. A very interesting gentleman who is using meditation to help heal himself and others, and his name is Hawkins, Curtis Hawkins, I believe. Yep, Curtis Hawkins. We just interviewed the other day, and a fantastic gentleman. I also attended his meditation later on that evening.
Oh, cool.
And his, yeah, I apologize. I wish I had that information ready. It's Vortex Meditation Playbook, and he has a group on Facebook, Vortex Meditation Playbook. So join his group, and they do free Zoom meditations once a week for abductees, and it's about getting your power back. It's about getting a sense of power back when you are dealing with abduction trauma, you know, because you don't tend to feel a sense of control, and you're dealing with the traumatic effects of it. So this helps to bring it back to you and give you a sense of empowerment. So he was my first interview, and great guy doing great things. And his story is there as well on the channel. So I welcome anyone who would like to tell their story to just shoot me an email. It's the channel name at Gmail, so Rooted Elemental as it's spelled at Gmail, if they'd like to. Or even if they, you know, they need somebody to talk to. Maybe they've had weird experiences. If you're a medium out there and something weird happened to you, you're getting weird information and you need somebody to talk to, and you know, in confidence or something like that, I'm also available for that as well. Because sometimes we get information that is just, you know, it's disturbing. You know, right. It's disturbing. There's people and places that are involved in things that will keep you up at night, you know? And yeah, so.
I bet some of this stuff could creep you out. Some of the stuff has got to creep you out. Some of it.
It does, and it's sad, because what happens is you will pick up the emotions. You will be seeing things through their eyes as they experienced it. The helplessness, the begging, the sad, like like the teenage boy down in Texas, East Texas. You know what? And I even found the name of the town he was in, a small town. I actually found it. It started with a C. And the way that his family did him was absolutely terrible. They had this small pig farm, and he was special needs, and he did not want to harm the pigs. He just didn't want to do it. And the father was abusive, and the father used his older brother to bully him and harass him. And finally, they killed him. They killed him, and
Gosh.
It was horrible. And they buried him right underneath the freaking the pig space where they kept the pigs. And you know, this is a place where there's no accountability, and you know, he probably wasn't even in school. I don't even feel like he was in school. Like, they were a poor family with this small little. I mean, I can see it. I can see the way the house was set up in the pig pen, and they hit him in the back of his head with a hoe, with a garden hoe, and they killed him because he was different. He was special. A good sized kid. Maybe he might have been, I don't know, 15, 16, 17, something like that. But when I see him at the end of the driveway, and he's standing at the driveway like he's waiting for somebody to help him or to tell his story or to find him.
Wow, that is sad.
So yeah.
That's really sad. It's horrific.
Yeah. So things like that have been pretty disturbing. Disturbing.
What's some of the best experiences you've had? Most fulfilling and wonderful experiences you've had as a medium? I'm sure you've got to have some amazing, moving and wonderful experiences at least from time to time. Have you had anything to that degree, and maybe even that was on the spur of enlightenment?
So yeah, I'll tell you about the first time I realized I was a medium. I was actually at work. I was working in the human service field. This was 2000 and maybe 2005. And I'm at work with my coworker. We put our folks to bed, and we're sitting at the kitchen table doing our documentation for the night. And I looked up at her. I just looked at her. I looked at her head. She's a beautiful Irish girl with all this red hair, beautiful thick red hair. And I looked at her forehead, and I see the name Harry being scripted out on her forehead, like it was a cartoon. It's like one of those Disney movies where you see like the words being scripted out, and it was Harry. So I said very apprehensively, I said, "Who's Harry?" And she's like, "What?" And she turned red. I said, "Who is Harry?" And she said, "He's my imaginary friend." And I was like, "What?" And so I explained to her, I said, "His name is on your forehead." And so we just had a night of that.
Wow.
That was the first time. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Because I didn't know. I had no idea that I had that ability at that time.
You're not the first person who has various different types of extrasensory perception. This reports things like that. As a matter of fact, one of my colleagues, Dr. Barry Taff, he's a parapsychologist. He was telling in his book Aliens Above, Ghosts Below. He was talking about an experience one of his colleagues had whenever they were sitting in their living room, and an apparition of several words popped up in their kitchen. But it wasn't an apparition of an entity or a person. It was a small phrase. And it turned out it had something to do with the woman. And it turned out that she was ate up with cancer, and she died. It was like her consciousness was projecting this premonition in a physical manifestation. Just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, thank you. See, so that's great, because up until this time I haven't heard of anyone having a similar with actual literal words appearing. So thank you for that. No, it's pretty cool.
I believe that. I believe you 100%, because let me tell you something. I've been researching parapsychology for almost 18 years, and I'm going to get my certification as soon as I can through Duke at the Ryan Research Center. I'm going to get my parapsychology certificate at some point. But clairvoyance is one of my, and telekinesis are two of my most fascinating parts of it that I enjoy learning about. It's just fascinating. I think it's some abilities that all humans possess in some degree. I've seen the evidence is astounding. We look at Project Stargate with the Army and the CIA decades ago. You know, they proved in a laboratory that this stuff does happen. People can remote view and view objects or events in other areas of space and time. And then we have telepathy. We have that. They're interested in telepathy. They're interested in PK. I mean, all this. Are you how adept are you with all that stuff as far as your knowledge goes?
Yeah, I'm a very strong and natural telepath. Now, telekinesis is something that I would like to get to strengthen, actually. And I think that comes with psychic development, which I train people for, especially in telepathy too. So I have a little academy, which really isn't out there. I'm kind of just dealing with people individually through email. But what I'm doing is I'm training people over the course of 10 sessions to advance their acuity. And in that, there's a strong emphasis on telepathy. So that's what I'm offering currently in my training. But telekinesis is something that I'm really fascinated with too. And I'm trying to see if that's something that'll be a fixture in my future. But I did have a situation where one of my first videos where I talk about there was a week in January where there was a really weird week where there was a lot of interesting psychic activity, and it even was happening with a friend of mine. And I somehow made objects in my room change, like move around just by thought. But it only
so this was done directly. You did this directly, and this wasn't spontaneous PK or a poltergeist. This was actually you controlling this. Is that correct?
Well, it was spontaneous. I didn't know my thoughts were affecting it. So for instance, I was thinking about doing some hiking in January. I was thinking about doing hiking in the summer, right? But I was also thinking I have a bum knee because I heard it, and I have a cane that's in my closet that I would need, right? So I thought about the cane, and then the next day I went out and I came back, and the cane was not where it was supposed to be. It was by my door, right? Right. So that's spontaneous. And then something else happened with another object in my room that I thought about, but it only happened that week. So something was going on in the week of the 3rd in January. I have a video on that talks about that. And there's another, there's something else I want to share with you after we're done with this, because I
Sure.
almost forgot about that. I think you'd find it interesting.
Oh,
But
yeah,
I would like to get into telekinesis as well and kind of open that up and strengthen it.
This is your hour, so you're the superstar here. Okay. You're the boss. Okay.
Okay.
I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah. Okay. So I did a video talking about my trip from Columbus to Indiana. It was a road trip with me and my husband at the time. We were driving from New York to Oklahoma, and in Columbus, we picked up some extra dimensionals, which at the time we thought were ETs. And they were in the vehicle with us, and there was physical evidence of the male, that it was a woman and a male, or a female and a male. Female sat behind me, I was driving, the male sat behind my partner. And the male had a boxed apparatus in his chest area. I don't know if it was a communicative device, it was a transmitter, it was something. Now at this time, because this happened in 2012, 2011, now I understand it to be that they were extra dimensional, because they were in the vehicle, but you would only be aware of them if you were privy to an extra dimension within this parallel. And it's difficult to explain it, but they were in the vehicle, they left physical evidence, but you couldn't see them with the naked eye. I could see them, and I was aware of them in my mind's eye, that they were in the vehicle. I can describe them to the T, their clothes, and this box apparatus that only the male had. And they seem to be mates, like the kind of mates that really couldn't separate without, you know how swans are they mate for life. And if you separate them, it felt like it was that sort of thing. And what they were giving me was that they had to get somewhere. They had to get somewhere in a certain amount of time. And this is the only portion of the trip that this phenomena occurred. It was from Columbus, Ohio to Indianapolis, Indiana.
Did you communicate with them?
Only when we got to Indiana.
Was it awkward?
When we got to Indiana,
did you feel awkward before you
It wasn't, no, because I'm already comfortable with that phenomenon. And I had to wonder if the reason they were in the vehicle is because they were comfortable and they knew that we were receptive. Because my partner as well is O-negative. He's into all of this stuff. He's Choctaw and all that. So
cool.
Wow. He's already read in on it, you know. So ghosts and that sort of thing. I mean, he used to tell me about how his uncles would beat up boogers. Like, boogers are a term. It's a Southern term for like ghost or something like that. Am I right?
Yeah, that's what we call them. Yeah.
Yeah. He has an uncle that used to fight them physically, even though they're not right. So he was very familiar with that. And but he didn't see them. He didn't see them, but he said he felt that something was weird, like a little off, like the energy was weird between those points.
And is he full Choctaw? I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. Is he full?
No, it's fine.
Is he full Choctaw?
His was full.
So he's like half. He's like a third or half. That is so cool. I would love to meet him. That would be really cool. Man, that is so cool. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for interrupting. Please continue.
No, it's fine. It is absolutely fine. He used to tell me these stories about, these boogers and some of the splotches out there and the rural property that they lived on and stuff that they experienced. But he didn't see them. But so when we got to Indiana and we're at this truck stop, it's one of the truck stops that's on the way out of the city outskirts. And when I made the video, I was trying to find or figure out which one it would have been. But I parked the vehicle and I was half asleep. So I was like, Jace, tell them they can go in and use the bathroom because we're going to be here for a while. And I'm saying it out loud. Like I'm half asleep and I'm saying, Jace, tell them to go in and use the bathroom. And he acknowledged it. Like he acknowledged that I was talking about somebody who would have been in a car, but he didn't question it. So, I mean, we didn't feel weird. I didn't feel weird, but he said he could tell that there was like some sort of different energy in the car. So when I woke up and I said, Jace, where did they go? Where'd they go? And he said, who? I said, there were two people in the back seat. You didn't see them? And I described them.
I'll tell you what, Ghost Whisperer has nothing on you. Ghost Whisperer has nothing on you. I have got to tell you that right now, Greg. We have the real life Ghost Whisperer here.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah,
I'll shut up this time for real.
No, it's fine. The kicker is when we turned around, like in the back seat, there was ectoplasm on the inside of the passenger. Because I had a 2000 Nissan.
No way.
Yeah, and they're in that if you're familiar with an Xterra and the windows and the passengers, it's that back piece of the window, the back little compartment area of the window. There was ectoplasm. It was a white film from his hair, and his hair it wasn't shiny. It didn't have any product in it, but it was curly dense hair from him leaning on the window. And that was our proof. That was our physical proof that there were two people in the back seat. And it was amazing. I've never, and in all the experiences I've had in my life, all the paranormal experiences, there's never, ever, 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 ever been physical proof.
Greg, I want to hand the floor to you. This is sailed right into the unknown. Greg, I'm going to let Greg talk to you for a second, because
Sure.
I am fascinated. You're one of the few people I've ever met that has actually witnessed ectoplasmic residue.
Yeah.
But before I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to let my friend here, my bro here, I'm going to let him talk to you for a second, because I'm formulating some questions about that. Go ahead, Greg.
Sure, no problem.
Well, I'm not really much of the question asker. I love to listen to stories, but for what I want to know was, did you actually collect the ectoplasm and try to like find someone that can actually test it? I've always been curious about it because I've heard about it, but I wonder if they ever like brought it to a lab and actually look under a microscope or do some sort of test on it, or.
No, but what we did do, no, we didn't. We didn't even think about that. We were so excited that there was proof, and you could see like the curly hair, But we didn't. And I don't even think we would have even considered like having it taken to a laboratory. But what we did do is we left it there for like a year and a half. We washed every part of the car, the windows, and we never touched that spot. And then eventually it started to fade away. And then once it started to fade away, we just washed it. But he's the only witness to it. Other than his family, his brothers down in Oklahoma saw it, because we told the story and everybody came out and looked at it. And so his family is witness to it as well. But we just left it there because that was like our badge of honor. Like, this is proof that we didn't make it up, that we weren't too tired and we didn't hallucinate it. That was the only physical proof I've ever had.
Right.
She's like,
Yeah,
look, y'all, I am not lying. Look, here's the proof. Absolutely.
We were so excited. And he's my ex now. I've been trying to find him so that I can bring him on at least on my show and we can talk about it. But we've been out of touch for about 7 years or so. But I'm still looking for him. If I can find him, I'll bring him on and we'll do like something about that. But that video is called Columbus to Indiana.
We should have you back on the show sometime. And you should bring your husband with you.
Oh God, if I can find him, I would. Yeah. We separated. We actually divorced a while ago, but I would like to find him because we're still friendly. We're just out of touch.
Right, I got you.
Where he is.
I hope he's doing well. If you're out there, my friend, I hope you're doing well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So I got a question for you. Okay, so this is kind of out there, okay, and I apologize, but
no problem.
For the last couple of years, I've been studying the effects of hemp and cannabis on the human body. I'm a veteran and I have a lot of health issues, so I'm trying to look at more natural solutions to some of my health problems. Do you think, and this, and I forgive me for this being kind of out there a little bit, but do you think that cannabis in some controlled circumstances can enhance certain psychic abilities? Is that possible from a medical perspective and from a spiritual perspective or whatever, scientific perspective?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your service, for one. And
yes, ma'am.
Two, I absolutely believe the medicinal, and I believe it opens you up. The female plant, absolutely. The female plant, I actually wrote a song about the female plant. I'm a songwriter.
Oh, no, that's so cool.
Oh. Yeah, I wrote a song about the female plant because she does give you gifts. She gives you gifts, and yeah, absolutely, it can open you up, and yeah, absolutely. Is that what you found? Have you found?
So I've been thinking about conducting like a little experiment with a few people, but I'm not even close to being ready for that. We're doing a clairvoyant. I'm in the early stages of playing a clairvoyance experiment, which I'm going to have at least one parapsychologist, if not two or three, being on board with it. I'm definitely going to have a noted parapsychologist because I'm playing. I don't want to play with something that I don't know. I know very little bit on the practical end, I know a lot about it as far as information goes, but not, I couldn't sit here and be like, yeah, I couldn't take my Zener cards like my wife can and say, circle, wavy line, square. I just can't do it. I mean, but my wife can. Sometimes I have to introduce you to my wife, Sandy. Y'all would get along great. She's had very similar experiences like you have. But at any rate, we're going to be doing something with that in the future. I use legal hemp and cannabis derivatives for my health problems, and it's made a big difference for me. But at any rate, I just wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, I absolutely believe so. I absolutely believe so. And it provides clarity. I think it does different things for different people. Some people actually need it to feel grounded and to feel clear and all the different. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a wonderful therapy, and it's a good way to connect with your higher self.
Yeah.
Because there's so much noise and hyperstimulation and all of these things that really just take us away from the natural world. And that's a really good way to stay, to get balanced and to stay, in focus.
Sativa plants seem to be a little bit better, are really good for concentration, I've noticed. And the indica plants are better for sleeping and pain relief, I've noticed. Have you seen anything like that?
No, I mean, I do hear that. I hear it, but I haven't experienced it personally. I haven't experienced working with sativa or any of the oils or anything, but I definitely believe it. Definitely believe that enhances and helps to make things clear, as well as the other stuff like the DMT.
DMT is fascinating.
Have you tried the DMT?
No, ma'am, I have not. I haven't, and I don't think Greg, I don't think he's never done anything like that either. But I'm interested in DMT and learning more about it, if at least. I think it's fascinating. I'm also learning a little bit about doing some research on ketamine therapy. I don't know very much about either one of them, but whenever I use my hemp and cannabis products, I feel closer to God. I don't know how to actually explain it. I feel like when I lay down, my head down at the end of the night, I kiss my wife goodnight, and I lay there and I have a very light type of, I guess you could call it meditation. And then I go into a very long prayer, and then I go back into the meditation, and I just feel really close with my God. It's just really wonderful.
Yeah, I can imagine. And for that reason, I love it. I love that it's available. And I'm glad that works for you like that,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about non-human entities, if you don't mind. Can we talk about that for just a minute?
Yeah, sure.
That's the other thing I wanted to ask
Absolutely.
you about, because this is how our conversations go, Shi. We'll start talking about one thing, and then it goes into a million directions, and that's what makes good research, in my opinion. This has been a really good night of research, and I hope one day you're able to come back with us and be with us again.
Anytime.
But at any rate, I'm sure you're familiar with Kathleen Marden. Have you read? Are you familiar with her or any of her books?
No, I can't say that I am.
So Kathleen Marden is Betty and Barney Hill's niece. She's done a lot of stuff with History Channel and Discovery Networks, and she used to run her and a lady named Denise Stoner used to run an experiencers group in Florida, and I think it started out through MUFON. And I think they do it outside of MUFON now, but anyway, she was telling me they were both. I've had both of them on my show on multiple occasions. And Greg and I, as a matter of fact, Greg and I interviewed her. What was it, like at the beginning of the year, wasn't it, Greg?
I believe so, or maybe it was last year. I can't remember.
We had her on last year, but we had her on. You remember at the beginning of the year when her new book came out? Remember sent us copies of her book. Well, anyway, so, stay on subject. she was telling me about how when they were working with these experiencers, that it wasn't just one phenomenon. There's, as a researcher myself, I tried to, I started researching the paranormal in general, and I use the paranormal as a blanket term for everything, basically, different types of phenomenon, because that's just the way I look at it.
Right.
But when I started researching the paranormal as a whole, ufology, parapsychology, the whole gamut, one thing, I'd start researching one thing, and it would lead me into another thing, and it led me to Bigfoot at one point, and that led me back to parapsychology to research that some more, to understand some things, certain types of physical science. I find I very much believe in a creational science, and I think that there's a really interesting methodical way our universe works. But at any rate, the Kathleen and I were talking about that one time in a private conversation, and she was telling me about various different types of non-human entities besides your ET, besides your human and non-human spirits, the jinn, the fallen angels, the angels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the list goes on and on. What are there other types of entities you've encountered in your lifetime that you would, besides ET, the prospective ETs, I should say, human spirits? Have you encountered anything else?
Yeah. So I've been able to see reptilians, but my understanding and relationship and connection with the knowledge of them is not like what most people. I've never seen them in any of the bases that I've been to, but the ones that I do see that are interdimensional are brown and red skin. There's like this brown red skin connection, and they are nomadic, and they are they're not like human hungry. So I think everybody's experience is different, right? And their experiences are valid, but I'm not aware, and even in my astral travels, I'm not aware of or have had any experience with any malevolent type of reptilians, unless they're like human. They're human in appearance, and they're actually reptilians. I mean, that's possible, but I've never seen the scale persuasion other than in the extra dimensional ones, and they look and behave and have diet requirements that are nothing like what is commonly believed and talked about. So there's them, and one of my apartments, I had leased an apartment for 2 years in Albany, New York, and it actually had a vortex in it, and I know it had a vortex because I'd had that pareidolia, where I'd have like these different beings and their faces show up in the wall. I could see like beings peeking into I could see beings peeking in, especially around August, like the dog days of summer.
Greg's gonna have nightmares.
Which is, I mean, I would notice them, but they never mess with me. Like they're always looking at me. They look at me. But I never get any weird energy. What's weird is that they're just there. It's like, okay, you're there. Like, why are you there? Like, are you going to talk to me or what? They're just hanging there. And so they were there for a while in the walls and stuff, and then they just went away, and I haven't seen them since. But that apartment had a lot of activity. I was seeing beings coming in from different places during the dog days of summer, which is when I guess our connection with Sirius is the strongest. Like there's a lot of energy going back and forth, and that could have been a catalyst to the activity that I was seeing in my living room. It was just in one corner of my living room. I was seeing different types of beings peek in and just kind of look at me and then go away. There was somebody from Andromeda whose name was Alex, and he was an alligator man, literally. But we were kicking it like me and you, like we were just having a conversation.
Right.
And he was giggling, and he was like, his name was Alex, and he was from Andromeda, but he looked like an alligator. Like he didn't have a snout, but he was covered like that. So
Sounds like one of those old
but I never...
It sounds like one of those old Batman villains.
Right.
Yeah.
Alligator Man. Pow!
Yeah, exactly. But he said he was from the Andromeda space, or space in Andromeda. And so I've seen them, and any other beings other than like my parent group or the blue skins. That's about it. I mean, but I think that a lot of them are here, and they look like me and you, and they're from other spaces. You know.
Right.
Sometimes you can pick that up.
You know, I was watching a Dr. Robert Lawrence Kuhn on his show Closer to Truth. I don't know if either one of y'all's heard of this guy. He's pretty brilliant. He's an open-minded skeptic. He that's just the way he's in that camp. He's not a Michael Shermer skeptic. He's a open-minded skeptic. Okay, so we were talking about on that particular episode. He was talking about the 11 dimensions that we know of in the universe, and how there may or may not be more on moving forward. I think there may be an infinite amount of dimensions, but where I'm going with this is this is what I'm getting to right here. I've studied hundreds of near-death experiences, and whenever one of the more fascinating cases besides Howard Storms who was on my show, he was the first guest I ever interviewed. Actually, he was on Unsolved Mysteries. Back in the early 90s, I think it was. But anyway, he had a near-death experience, and during the course of it, he had a face-to-face meeting with our creator, and he asked them these questions about different types of people or entities that live in other planets or other places in general. And he said yes. He told them very frankly yes, and here's some examples. And all these examples of different types of non-human entities that live in and out of our dimension, he said there were things that he couldn't identify. There's things that were creepy looking. There's things that a good amount of them, he said, look just like us. The majority, a lot of them did, but then there were some that didn't look like us. What are your thoughts on that as far as these dimensions? Because see, here's the thing. A lot of other people talk about when they're out of their body and they have these near-death experiences, they report that a lot of them report that time does not function, either doesn't exist or does not function as it does in our three-dimensional plane. And as a matter of fact, I've heard of a couple instances where people reported leaving their body really fast and zipping out of our universe, and then watching our third dimension basically fold in on itself, going back, and then as far going back into the dimension of time, and then rising out of that dimension and going into another dimension which would be maybe the fifth or sixth dimension or whatever. I'm just using this as hypothetical. But have you ever heard, whenever you've had your out of body travels, your astral travels, have you ever experienced anything like that where you can tell, oh, I'm in another dimension? Or did you ever see like a dimensional fold where you're watching these dimensions collapse on each other? Have you heard of that, or have you ever had anything similar to that happen?
Not that I actually viewed, because wherever we went, whether it was like on one of these group travels, because I always traveled with other children, and that goes into like my agency children video, which is a whole other animal. But no, I've never seen the actual material breakdown and that sort of thing. Because we've always just presented, like when you just become aware that you're in a different world. And I've been in worlds where there were where something happened, it was some kind of an apocalypse, and there's always schools. Like there's one world where there's the school is like deep underground because the place was buried, it was buried, and it's like totally underground. There's another place where there's another school. I mean, schools are really significant in some of these places. But so I don't see it happen. We just we just appear there. We just suddenly become present there. I mean, I have been like in the ethers, but I haven't seen like the breakdown of different dimensions and stuff like that. So, but that's something I would like to see. You know, I would like to see the workings of it. You know, and see
Yeah.
that.
I always might assume that if you were astral projecting, if the idea of time dilation would also come into effect in the world of physics. I wish we had our other better half with us today to explain that.
Yeah, Jake. I wish Jake was with it. Jake very. By the way, Jake said he regrets not making it, and he had to work overtime.
Oh,
and I'm sorry he couldn't be
okay.
with us. That's who he was referring
That's
to.
okay. That's
But,
okay. Let me. Mhm. Go right ahead.
No, I'll let you go.
Okay. You asked me another part. There was another part of your question about time. So were you asking, am I registering the difference in time? I know you mentioned something about missing time. I've never experienced missing time that I know of, other than the Florida experience. And the last thing I remember before that happened was staring up. We were parked in this mall parking lot, and it was so hot, so all the windows were down. And the last thing I remember was looking up at this light pole, and it was an unusual staring. Like it was like I was fixated on it unnaturally. That's the last thing I remember. And then we were on this back lot of this Air Force. So missing time, absolutely. But the apparition experience I had at my aunt's house, like the first night we got down there to her house, there was no missing time that I could recognize. There was no shift or anything. So I've yet to experience that piece. I've yet to experience it, but I know it's real. I'm sure it's real. And yeah.
Wow, that was a good comment, man. I've had missing time at least twice that I can recall. I've had it at least twice, and then
Okay.
maybe 3 times actually. I don't. Who knows? A lot of people have missing time. They don't even know they had it. That's actually
Yeah.
quite frequent.
Yeah, that's a thing too, because it could have happened and you just have no idea. Well, yeah, I mean, I was being taken the whole time. You know, I was 10 and younger. I was being taken, had no idea. So I had to have experienced it. I'm just not conscious of it at this point, you know?
Correct. Yeah, I had a. You know, I have a. I think it's worth mentioning to you, She. I had a friend of mine. Her name is Niara Isley. I first heard about her many years ago. She was on a guest on the Richard Dolan show when he was on KGRA internet radio, and she's an Air Force veteran, and she was stationed at Tonopah, which is just north of area Nellis Air Force Base in the Groom Lake area. And she had an incredible experience, and she's had some similar experience to what you're describing. Maybe one day I could introduce the two of you. I think y'all would have some fascinating conversations.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
She actually would be a good candidate for your program as well if you ever wanted to have another guest.
Oh,
I'll
awesome.
have to talk to you more about that later. But I just thought that was worth mentioning to you. I want to give you a final thought today on this research. You're an established medium. You like to help people out. You've had these you've had UFO sightings, you've had experiences. What's your final thought on all this? What do you think the implications is for yourself and mankind?
I think that we are a petri dish, and there are multiple programs that are going on here because there's multiple agendas and multiple different groups here. And I think we're a petri dish, and a lot of what's going on has gone on before. So the resets and stuff, like looking back on these recent past advanced civilizations and looking at where we are now and what's going on. It's just this, it's a repeat. It's, you know, because a lot of our history is hidden and a lot of what we've been told is a lie because there's physical evidence that says otherwise. So as far as their piece in it and how this and my piece in it, I think that I think there's a lot of experimentation going on here, and in some respects we're cattle, unfortunately. You did ask me about a negative experience. I think I don't know. I think you may have, but there's something right. And I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but I have a video called "The Air Force Base," and that goes into child trafficking and how a lot of these military bases are used to traffic children and have been a place where a lot of dark and nefarious stuff has happened. They've been used. Because I had an experience. I was escorted with, I had an escort, and so here's the thing too, there's a lot of observation going on, and I know that a lot of the astral traveling that was done in the 90s had to do with observation, observing, not getting involved, but watching, almost like there's some sort of agenda for intelligence gathering. And so the stuff that's going on in these bases, you know, that was one of the scenarios. It's a very troubling video to listen to. Very, very, very troubling. So anybody that listens to this podcast and goes over to my channel and says, hey, I'm going to give it a shot, I'm just going to tell you it's not for polite company, because I described something that happens to a little boy that I was playing with, and it's something that happens every day. And it's been going on, you know, the children that go missing, the things that happen to them, all of the players involved. This is like a worldwide, machine. And I witnessed this. And so, so when you ask, like, where do I fit in? I mean, myself and the other children that are used in these programs, to me, it looks like it's observation. And then anywhere that we can help, we help, you know, with the gifts that we have or whatever, because it's not all the way clear to me either. You know, I often ask, I don't think I'm active anymore. I don't think that I've been, because I just don't think I'm active. I think that there's a certain period of time in which they use people for certain projects, and then they just, you know, let you amalgamate and, you know, with the scheme of things here. But I know that's not a very direct response, and I apologize, but I think it's kind of not an easy response because there's so many pieces to this thing. And but I think my part in it is just observing, because I myself don't feel like I belong here, and I myself don't feel like I'm normal. Like the masses, I feel like I'm something other, and the older I get, the more clear that becomes to me. So, yeah.
You seem like a normal person to me that's just had some incredible experiences.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that. But yeah, I've had some adjustment issues because the vibration here is so low, and my orientation is to the higher dimensions. I mean, places where you don't have to eat, where places where you're not using your physicality, but when you're there, you can see that there's physicality. Like, you can identify that you have a physical vehicle. It's just how you are identifying your part in the space, right? It's how you identify in the space, but you're not actually physical. And these are the higher realms, you know, these are some of the higher realms. And so I'm just not orientated to a space that has such a low vibration. And so it's been a real struggle to, like, find my place here. And so that's why I just champion my gifts and use them to try to help people and to try to be a positive aspect here, where there's so much darkness and suffering and evil, you know.
That there is. And I have to hand it to you, Shi. We've really enjoyed having you on the program today, and maybe sometime you come back and you can come back and we can talk about some of that stuff. Maybe you can drag your hubby into this conversation too. I'd love to meet him.
Yeah, that'd be nice if I can find him.
Yeah,
thank you.
I hope
divorced,
you're
by the way.
Oh, yeah,
we're
sorry,
divorced,
my bad.
by the way.
Sorry,
so
your
if you've got a woman out there, I don't want to. Yeah.
That's my bad. If you're out there,
no, it's okay.
Bless his
but
heart.
I'd love to come back. And thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
And Greg, thank you for hanging out tonight as well. You're listening to Project Stargate Friends Research. This was Shi the Medium, and we really enjoyed being with her tonight. We'll be back next week with another fascinating conversation. Until then, good night.